In 1918, at the age of 30, Srinivasa Ramanujan became the second Indian to join the Royal Society of Mathematics, which, mind you, is the society that decides who will receive the Nobel Prize. Ramanujan gave the world the foundation of the three surfaces at the heart of string theory, and that too 90 years before this theory was recognized. And maybe that's the reason why today we celebrate his birthday as Indian Mathematics Day. Any idea which day that is? Well, no worries, a lot of people don't know. Well, you don't just not know the date. Many people don't even know his name. This is especially true in Western countries. Despite his advanced scientific contributions, only a few people in the West know his name. One reason for this is he was obsessed with math himself. I'm referring to the year 1900 Mahas. He was obsessed with math. In 1900, at just 13 years old, he had completely mastered S.N. Loney's Advanced Trigonometry book. So much so that by this age, he was able to discover sophisticated theorems on his own without any help from a teacher. And then, when he got bored of that over the next 3 years, at the age of 16, he picked up G.S. Carr's book filled with 5,000 theorems. This book, which was a pure and applied mathematics book, he mastered it in just 1 year. He mastered a book of pure and applied mathematics in just 1 year. The following year, he studied probability, statistics, number theory, and data analysis. He then applied this knowledge the next year. Using his expertise in probability, statistics, number theory, and data analysis, he calculated the Euler-Mascheroni constant to 15 decimal places. By the way, with this, scientists could now predict the probability of anything much more accurately. And all this had been done by a 12th grade student so far. Now, forget about kids his age. It was a big deal even for the founder of the Indian Mathematical Society, V. Ramaswamy Iyer. So yeah, we can say Ramanujan was a gifted child, but he also drifted wild. I mean, Ramanujan was born for mathematics. But his obsession was so intense that because of it, he left his studies. And you know the saying, too much of anything is bad, even if it's a good thing. Maybe the same thing happened with Ramanujan. Ramanujan's obsession with math had grown so much that he wouldn't even eat or drink day and night. He would just keep solving math on his slate. And even after becoming an adult, his mother was the one who fed him his meals. Consequently, he failed nearly every college subject except math. And because of this, he couldn't even qualify for the scholarship he needed for his higher education. And he was forced to drop out of college in the middle. And ultimately, such a great mathematics genius never even got a college degree. And without a degree, there was no job. Without a job, there was no money. And without money, there was no food to feed his family. And now, since he was the only breadwinner in his family, maths was forced to become a second priority in his life's struggle. Actually, Ramanujan was so far ahead of the rest that even the top Indian mathematicians found it difficult to understand his theorems. But was this math having any practical application in his life? He needed a degree to get a good job in life, which he didn't have. And to get a degree, he had to score good marks in other subjects as well. He had to excel in other subjects too, despite only loving mathematics in order to achieve his goal. So what would he do in such a situation? Basically, he had two options in this situation. Either he could ask for help from someone who understood his talent and could fund or finance him, or the second option. He would have to lower his caliber a bit for a job, so that at least he could earn enough to make a living from that job. Now, obviously, in the century of British rule in which he was living, the first option was not possible. He had to choose the second option. So, without any delay, he quietly wrote a letter to the Madras Port Trust and requested a simple clerk's job there. Now, I know this might sound a bit bad. Such a talented person is asking for a clerk's job. But helplessness is also a very real thing in life, and because of this helplessness, knowingly or unknowingly, he had to crush his own talent under his feet. So Ramanujan's journey was difficult from the very beginning, not just from his teenage years. He had worked hard since childhood and had to go through one health issue after another. For instance, he contracted smallpox as a child, during a time when vaccines for the disease were not yet available. In 1917, his condition turned serious and potentially life-threatening due to a gastric ulcer. And after that, in 1919, he got tuberculosis, and once again, he was pushed to the brink of death. But despite so many ups and downs in life, he always remained focused and very clear about his life goals. Another interesting fact is that at age 22, he married a 9-year-old girl. After his birth, his parents had 3 more children. But none of those 3 children could survive. Now, if you want to know about his journey like this, and want to know more details, then I would like to recommend a book to you. A Life of the Genius Ramanujan. Listen to this book in regional languages like Hindi on Cuckoo Frequency Modulation, India's leading audiobook app. Get over 10,000 hours of summarized non-fiction content in Hindi and 7 other regional languages covering finance, history, leadership, career, and motivation. This app offers book summaries from various genres like finance, history, leadership, career, motivation, science, business, and biographies. These engaging summaries are available in regional languages, including Hindi, and can be listened to while multitasking. The yearly subscription is usually $399, but if you click on the link in the description below or use my code GS50, you'll get a straight 50% off, which means you'll get the yearly subscription for just 199 rupees. So if increasing your knowledge is your priority, then click on the link in the description below. This truly may be one of your best investments. This offer is only valid for the first 250 users. Now let's return to Ramanujan's job. If he hadn't taken that job, as I said, maybe he would never have found success. Well, when Ramanujan was working as a clerk at the Madras Port Trust, his colleagues helped him send his theorems to top mathematicians H.F. Baker, E.W. Hobson, and G.H. Hardy, because they believed that seeing such high-level theorems, if these 3 members of the Royal Society of Mathematics were impressed, they would invite Ramanujan there. But that didn't happen. The first 2 mathematicians didn't even reply to him. They thought Ramanujan was just some random person and sent his letters back without even opening them. And seeing this, Ramanujan felt like his dream was almost sinking. Because when 2 great mathematicians had already rejected him, it was only natural to expect that the 3rd mathematician, G.H. Hardy, who was even more renowned than them, would also reject him. But then something different happened here. Hardy was also about to ignore that letter. He noticed that Ramanujan had challenged and logically disproved some of his own theories. And then what happened? G.H. Hardy, who was one of the most well-known mathematicians of the Royal Society, immediately replied to Ramanujan and wrote in his reply, "Would you like to come to England and work with me?" Now, I know this is a big deal, but Hardy saw something in him like this. What did he see that the other 2 mathematicians didn't? Actually, by the time Ramanujan's letter reached England, the first theorem in that letter had already been proven by a European mathematician. But after that, as soon as Hardy, along with his Cambridge colleague John Littlewood, reached the second theorem, they saw that the hypergeometric series invented by the 2 greatest mathematicians of that time, Euler and Gauss, had been solved at least better than Gauss by Ramanujan, if not better than Euler. By the way, this series is still used today in the study of hydrogen atoms. And then, when they reached the theorems related to continued fractions, which, by the way, was Hardy's specialty and were used to understand infinity, then seeing Ramanujan's methods, they couldn't believe their eyes. Ramanujan's perspective was so advanced that Hardy literally said that Ramanujan has defeated me completely. No wonder Hardy desperately wanted to invite Ramanujan to England. Now friends, here I would like to say something about science and scientific methodology. Did you notice that science is all about logic and proving things in the most logical manner with proofs, legitimate proofs? And here, often your theory is also challenged by other scientists. And when it survives their challenges, then other scientists start respecting you. Here, it's not like another scientist is trying to pull you down by proving you wrong. Because the fight that's happening, the conflict that's happening, that is truly based on logic and facts, and this is a great thing, because this doesn't happen in religious ideologies and mere philosophies. Religious ideologies are only propagated based on authority and conformity. So many people believe in them, or some authority has said it, or they have political support. So that has to be true, but this is not the case with science. In science, you have to prove things, and even your enemies will salute you if you prove something. And this is exactly what we see here with Ramanujan as well. But the fact was that maybe Ramanujan was coming out of the well, only to head towards a cliff. Because now you tell me, what was happening in Europe in 1914? Yes, the beginning of World War I. Actually, when Ramanujan reached England, World War I started there just 4 months later. And England's first priority now was the same as India's: survival. In that situation, his theorems about infinity were somewhat useless as they didn't help solve the chaos on the planet. On top of that, because he didn't have any official degree in math due to his lack of understanding, he used to solve theorems in his own ways instead of traditional methods. Because, as I said earlier, he had mastered math at such a young age that he automatically see a lot of steps in theorems in his mind. Now, in that critical moment, British mathematicians didn't want to put much effort into decoding such theorems without steps. So we can sort of say that Ramanujan was forgotten because he was born in that moment of history by mistake. At a time when the world's priorities were twisted. So does this mean he should have been born in a different era? Or should our country have had a strong enough education system at that time so that a person could embrace his passion and still support himself financially? In the midst of everything, Ramanujan provided equations that were essential for proposing string theory. David Gross, who won the 2004 Nobel Prize for String Theory, used an equation that Ramanujan had already given earlier, which is quite famously known as Ramanujan's number 1729. In 1920, while Hardy was hospitalized in Madras, when he went to meet Ramanujan, who was counting his last breaths during their conversation, Ramanujan, he asked about the taxi number, which was 1729. This number seemed ordinary to Hardy, but for Sir Ramanujan, even in that, there was a hidden meaning. He said, "Hardy, this is the smallest number that can be expressed as the sum of two cubes in two different ways. And that too in two different ways. Once by adding 12 raised to the power of 3 and 1 raised to the power of 3, and the second time by adding 10 raised to the power of 3 and 9. Raised to the power of 3. But was this a spontaneous answer? No, it wasn't. Seems like he had already been working on such a theorem for a long time." Although it wasn't 1729, something similar was found written in his personal notebook. Yes, the answer to the famous Fermat's last theorem, which has been a headache for mathematicians all over the world since the 17th century. Now look, what actually happened was that the French mathematician Pierre de Fermat said that the Pythagoras theorem, which is x squared plus y squared is equal to z squared. This only works for the power of 2, but it can't be used for higher powers than 2. Ramanujan said that's not the case. Higher powers can also be solved. It's just that we may have to add 1 or subtract 1 in that. That's it. For example, his deathbed number, 10 cubed plus 9 cubed, is equal to 1729, and that 1729 is basically 1728 plus 1, which can also be written as 12 cubed plus 1 cubed. Ernst Kummer, Eric Kahler, and Kunihiko Kodera used this equation to create the core of string theory, K3 surfaces. Now you must already know about string theory. It's basically a theory of everything that connects Einstein's relativity and quantum mechanics and tries to bring a comprehensive picture of the universe before our eyes. So string theory basically says that there are more than 3 dimensions in the universe, we just can't see them with our eyes. Those dimensions are extremely tiny, perhaps about the size of waving your hand. So you know your hand is moving in and out of those dimensions, and you can explain that mathematically, but we can't see them. So the calculations of this theory with so much potential wouldn't be possible without Ramanujan. And that's why India celebrates his birthday, the 22nd of December, as Indian Mathematics Day. Now, after listening to his entire story, I know all of you will say that his name should have been written in golden letters in the history of India. But the sad thing is that his talent was not recognized, and because the timing wasn't right. Even today, many in India are unaware of him and his contributions. Everyone here. So here, friends, I just want to say that share this video as much as possible with Indians, with your friends and family members, and tell them too that our country has also had a strong genius mathematician, whose contribution we should always remember. If you learned something new, please like this video. Subscribe to the Get Set Fly Facts channel right now and press the bell notification so you don't miss any updates on our upcoming videos. And friends, before you go, don't forget about Life of the Genius Ramanujan. You can listen to this audiobook on cuckoo frequency modulation. Use code GS50 for a 50% discount, link in the description. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning. Jai Hind.